for us being a bit late. We had some technical issues today, but don't worry, we are going to be diving into how PR got their clients ranking above gov.uk when it came to SEO. So we have a special guest with us here today. Let's do some very quick introductions first before we dive into today's topic. So Jess, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here, but only half because I've lost my voice. So I'll be looking out for comments, answering any questions. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a brand consultant. So I make sure you have a fully functioning brand to take control of your reputation, your growth, and your revenue.
Great. Thank you, Jess. Stephen.
Morning, everybody. Stephen Lerman from Chameleon BDS, Outsourced Business Development Service. So if you're looking to grow your business but don't have the resource to make those outbound calls, don't like picking up the phone, or just don't have the time, then please do give me a call. I'm more than happy to help you make those calls, get those appointments, and get you in front of those people, those companies that you want to help grow your business. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Now we have a special guest with us today, Lydia German from Tau Digital. Lydia, say hello.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Lydia German. As Una mentioned, I work for Tau Digital, and we are a B2B search marketing agency helping clients with SEO, content marketing, and PR, which is my specialty, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Fantastic. And that'll bring back some memories for me. Many, many years ago, I used to do PR before the days of social media, if you can imagine such a time existing. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Una Doyle. I'm the founder of Creative Flow, a business strategist and coach. And I love to help companies to be able to double their profits. If you want to know how I help them to do that, I can show you in only a few minutes. So send me a DM or comment below. I'll be happy to show you how. Okay, so let's dive into today's topic. So how PR got their clients' SEO ranking above gov.uk. So Lydia, I'd love to know from you, and I know you've got this case study that you're going to share with us today, but I'd love to know, what do you see as the biggest mistake that companies make?
Personally, what I see as the biggest mistake that companies make when it comes to their SEO strategy is we hear this phrase a lot, content is king, and people immediately read that and think, right, I need to get as much content out as possible about everything that I do. And what you really need is a strategy. You really need to think about what your goals are, how long it's going to take that piece of content to rank, whether you should have it as one guide or whether you should split it up, whether you should do it as a topic cluster, which is what I'm briefly going to touch on today as well. I think really just having that strategy and knowing your goals is the biggest mistake that I see people not doing.
It's interesting. So I imagine with this topic cluster that it's like, this is about getting super focused rather than spreading resources too thin as well, which I see a lot with business owners where they're trying to do too many things. So even within one kind of tactical thing, being more strategic and being more focused in it is going to get you better results. So yeah, absolutely. I can see that. So not having a strategy or goals, completely can get behind that. So Lydia, do you want to share? And we can dive into this case study. And yes, indeed, Becky, trust technical difficulties. This is what happens sometimes. But that's the kind of the pros and cons and the trials and tribulations of live. So, but it's all good. It's all good. All right. So Lydia, crack on. Let's hear more about this case study.
Fab. I'm ready to share my screen. If you can share that for me, please.
Yeah, we're seeing it.
Brill. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm from Tau Digital Marketing, and what I'm going to be talking about today is, as Una mentioned, how we got our client ranking above gov.uk for the topic of insolvency. So the client was Insolvency Experts. They're based in Bolton like us, and they really, really wanted to focus specifically on company liquidation. And so in order for me to explain how PR helps them appear above the gov.uk website, I do have to backtrack a little bit and talk about the topic clusters, really just to give a holistic sense of what we did. So topic clusters, as Una mentioned, are a great way to really, really focus in on your specific niche. It's a great way to show that you're an expert. But how do you get that content to appear high up on the Google, higher than the gov.uk website? So PR can make a world of a difference to these rankings. So when we had a look at this case study and put this together, we really wanted to prove the power of content clusters and PR. So if we compare a 6-month period, this was August last year to January this year compared to February to July, which is when we really sort of started to look at the case study. So the leads were increased 384%, the clicks 411%, impressions 137%, and the average position jumped up by 10 to 23.6. And this is all mainly just for company liquidation pages. So what was our strategy? Well, first of all, we knew that the client wanted to focus on company liquidation through our conversations with them. That's an area of the business that they really wanted to grow and focus on. So for us, it was time to do that research. How many people are searching for this? What are people searching for around it? So as I mentioned, when I mentioned about the biggest mistakes, some clients do already have pieces of content that maybe could be fleshed out a little bit more, maybe could be just worded a little bit differently to meet search queries. So they did have a little bit of a company liquidation guide. We popped this into Google Search Console and had a look what it's ranking for at the minute. And what surprised us is that there were queries popping up that weren't even being answered in the guide. So we thought, right, this is the time to either include them in the guide or spread them out into different smaller guides. So you might think, why would you separate them into different guides rather than ranking for one guide for all of these different questions? Well, first of all, we didn't want to put all of our eggs into one basket. If something was to happen to that page, if there was a technical error, we would basically lose all the rankings for that piece of content. Also, some may know the importance of internally linking. So one guide can link to another and they all flow together and can help users if they're trying to look for more information. And also that means that they don't have to scroll right to the bottom. If they're looking for a quick answer to a very specific question, which if your business is going to be liquidated, you probably don't have much time to be doing this research. You want a quick answer to your question. And so we split them into shorter blogs that answered the questions quicker. That meant that there was a lower bounce rate, known as, people exiting the website because they didn't have to spend all that time scrolling. The H1, so the title of the page, also contained the question being answered, which I think was a very big factor in the click-through rate. And also it means that we can have regular call to actions throughout the many different pieces of content that we had. Secondly, we had to look at what competitors were doing. We had to understand what their competitors were doing around company liquidation, and we found that key competitors that insolvency experts listed to us. The first one had 38 indexed articles. By index, we mean that we've put them through Google Search Console and we want them to crawl them and rank them. Competitor B, 23, competitor C, 47. Insolvency experts only had 6 at the time, so obviously there was a massive company liquidation gap. And also I used a piece of software called Ahrefs to have a look at the pages that were linking to competitors' company liquidation pages. And they had many, many more links than insolvency experts did.
Lydia, I'm just going to pause you there. So I just want to understand. So these articles, they're not on the competitors' websites. They're out there on the internet elsewhere.
So these that I've listed are on the website, but when it came to backlinks, also like PR, there were probably around the same amount. I was seeing consistently like 30 to 40 backlinks for each of the major liquidation articles on these websites. And so for me, it was like, right, we need to get the content team on this, but also there's a lot of work that I need to be doing to build in this PR to the company.
Then I want to make sure A, I've understood, and B, everyone watching understands as well. So basically, so it's an article that they do have on their own website, but there's links from other websites to that article.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'll show screenshots of it further on in the presentation, but it's kind of like mini tips and for different websites, like different business publications or PR pieces talking about company liquidation, that then links to, if you want to find out more about company liquidation, read our main guide. And that was one of the main ways that we sort of did that. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail further on.
Okay, great.
But yeah, any more questions, just interrupt me.
Quick question. How do you know what to put on and what not to put on? I mean, there's, like you said, it's about putting the right amount of content on. So is there an issue of overshare, if you will, like just, throwing everything at it? Because like you've got competitor C had 47, A had 38, B. But how do you know what's the right stuff to put on?
Well, I suppose if I just go back to Google Search Console, there's a lot of different pieces of software, many of which are free. So Google Search Console is free, and you can have a look at the type of queries that people are looking for. And for
Right.
me, that ties into what the biggest mistake is people are writing a lot of content, but they're not answering the questions that their potential clients are looking for. Another free way that you can do this is, say, for example, we're on the topic of company liquidation. You could just type that into Google, and you also get the people also asked questions that come up. That's another good way to look at what kind of questions you can answer. There's also programs such as Ahrefs and Moz, which are paid pieces of software that can tell you this is what people are looking for, this is how many people are searching for it, and also keyword difficulty. So is it going to be very difficult to rank for that if a very large competitor is also targeting that keyword? But yeah, I think there's no such thing as too much content if you do it right. That's the main message that I'm trying to get across, is making sure you've got that content strategy in place, if that makes sense. So next, it was time to get stuck in. So as you can see on the screen, this is what we have for our clients, which is what we call a traffic light report. And if you look on the left here, we basically have all of some of the major questions that we saw people were asking around liquidation and insolvency and things like that. Then we sort of justify in the middle why specifically we're going to target that, why it ties into the business goals, and sort of who the onus is. Is it something that we're currently writing and we're waiting for the client to approve it, etc. So this was a huge plan that we then put together. Again, this goes back to actually having a strategy. When are you going to write that content? Who's going to write it? How long is the content going to be? When's it going to go live? These are all very important things to bear in mind. Also, technical SEO does tie into this. Now, this is not my strong point because I am by no means a technical person at all. But from my understanding of it, initially we went from 6 pieces of content to 22 pieces of content by July when we wrote this case study. I think it's around 28 pieces now. But it was very important for us, like I said, to internally link those pages together so that Google can really understand that you can go here for more information or recommend this page for more information. That then means that people are on the website for longer and they're reading more about you and sort of seeing that you're an expert. And hopefully that leads you further down the sales funnel and more likely to make an inquiry. There's also something called FAQ schema. There are different types of schema that you can add to the back end of an article, and FAQ schema basically tells Google this is the key for featured snippets, which is what we can see here. So you might type in a certain term and the answer will come up to this question, and it'll basically tell Google that you're answering a lot of questions on this page. So it was important for us to implement that as well. So this is what it looks like at the minute. When we say hub, it basically is a big hub of information. So on the drop-down menu, you've got liquidation there, 4 different sort of categories, and then it filters down beyond that. So that's what it visually looks like for our clients. Now, this is my area of specialty, and this is how I sort of built links and generated PR that really made that main company liquidation page shine, I think, and rank above the Gov.uk website. This is just a screenshot. So it was the term company liquidation. And as you can see, insolvency experts are at the top here in the featured snippet. And then you've got the gov.uk website's official government guidance directly underneath. So how did we get insolvency experts ranking above the official government website? Well, for us, it was very important to build links and natural links to the company liquidation guide, the main one that we did, because we had 22 pieces of content. It's going to be a lot of time and a lot of effort to build links to all those individual guides. So you may have heard this term. I really don't like it, but I'm going to say it anyway, link juice, which is basically if you build a link via PR and that link links to the company liquidation page, and you have all those internal links to the other 22 guides where people can read more information, then the value that brings, the link juice, for example, will filter down into all the different guides. So all of them receive some sort of benefit from just one link to the main guide. And that goes into building something that we call domain rating or domain authority. Domain rating is within Ahrefs, and domain authority is in Moz, two big pieces of software. And that is a ranking from 1 to 100, 100 being the best ever. How authoritative are you in your sector? So basically, we're really trying to build that, and that's built by links. So the more links you have, the more authoritative you have, and the more that goes up towards 100. And the page now has 36 backlinks. As I said, with the competitors, they had around 30 to 40 each. So we're kind of up there now, many of which were built through my link building efforts, but some were just naturally built as well. And I think that just speaks volumes of the sort of how valuable that information was and how authoritative it was. In terms of how I built backlinks, here are a few examples. I mainly worked with business publications. These three here are the main business publications that I've been working with. My Tunbridge Wells is a blogger that we work with quite a lot for many different clients. And these are just taking small elements of the page, basically putting them into very helpful, quick tips, and then linking back to the company liquidation guide. This can be done very easily, just having a look at the top business publications, trying to get in touch with their PR team, maybe download a press kit, and just get in touch and really provide their readers with valuable content. Because if they are reading this and they're like, I want to find out more, they're going to click onto the company liquidation page. Another thing that I really like doing is responding to journalist requests. So this isn't necessarily building links to the company liquidation page, mainly the domain, so insolvencyexperts.co.uk, to the main URL to boost overall domain authority. Again, the more links you can get to a website, the better your rankings are going to be, because you're seen as more of an authority. This is an example here. This one was around what businesses need to be doing ahead of future lockdowns. I think this was last year that we did this, maybe the year before. And Ben Cowgill from Insolvency Experts answered this query. That was a nice link for them. Just, giving advice in their niche, maybe just general business ones like this kind of was. And you can do this. There's two main paid tools that I use. The first one is Harrow, which is Help a Reporter Out, which is a worldwide one. Tends to be a bit more American queries. And then Response Source, which I believe is UK based. A lot of queries, they come through in the form of newsletters, many newsletters every day with hundreds of journalist requests that I check through every morning. Also, you can use #journal_request on Twitter, and you'll see a lot of free requests on there. So that's definitely one to get started with, I'd recommend. So in terms of results, the company liquidation guide, we got 36 backlinks and actually ranks above the official UK government advice on company liquidation. The government UK website has a domain authority or domain rating of 93. Ours is about 60 less than that. So that just proves the power of providing that really valuable content and building those links that are helping people. Clearly, we're meeting the searcher's intent and what people are searching for. And it's also worth noting that out of our latest 6 articles, half of them have an average page view duration of between 9 and 10 minutes, which is huge. That means that people are really reading our content, finding it valuable, going onto different pages and staying on the website. Other half are out 5 to 6 minutes, which is still very good, so low bounce rate, and clearly users are wanting more in-depth information on this topic. So how can you do this for yourself? Again, it goes back to having this strategy. So set your topic cluster, a key topic or service that you want to push, and really, really hone in on an answer every question possible. And then you can use, if you want to pay for software or you already have software, you can use tools such as Moz or Ahrefs, or free software such as Google Search Console. Even, like I said, searching just the terms and what comes up on other asked questions. See what people are looking for around that topic. Have a nosy at your competitors' sites. How much content do they have on these topics? What sort of questions are they answering? What sort of PR are they doing? Get some inspiration there. Then, once you've got your plan together, you know what you're going to talk about, you know when you're going to talk about it, get stuck in with the content, and then use Google Search Console to find these hidden gems that you can then add into the content. And then it's just a case of building links to the main guide, working with bloggers and business publications, and keeping an eye out for those journalist requests on Twitter, maybe the paid pieces of software like Harrow and Response Source, and just making sure that you're getting in front of people and being seen as an authority. So that's my sort of main key points there. If you do want further information, this is broken down into a very in-depth case study. If anybody wants to have a look at the link, you can just Google Moz Insolvency Experts TAO Digital, and it's a very, very long case study. This is a very brief overview of it. Or you can get in touch with me directly. My email is lydia@taodigital.org. But yeah, that is my sort of presentation covered there, if you don't mind stopping sharing, Una.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Lydia. So yeah, amazing results there. I've got so many questions in my head, but we do have one from one of our viewers, Becky, who is saying, would the hashtag journal, it's journal request, not journal request, by the way, be as successful on LinkedIn? So I've just done a search. So there's 1,586 followers on journal request on LinkedIn. I would say go and follow it so that things do pop up, but Twitter is the place to be, I think, for most journalists and media requests, isn't it, really?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, great. Thanks for that question, Becky. Okay, so Stephen, Jess, what questions do you have or thoughts on what Lydia has shared today?
I'm just blown away. I didn't. It's so scientific. The way you build everything up so that people appear higher. I had no idea it was so involved, and there's a real fine art to it, isn't there? Really?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I'm
100%.
I'm a firm believer. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's all right. I was going to say some of it can be very technical. The technical stuff, I basically really had to sit down with our tech team and say, can you explain this in plain English to me? Because I'm not technical whatsoever. So that is me breaking it down. If you asked one of our tech team, they would explain it in much more depth than I have, which is why I've left that to the main case study.
Right, appreciate it. It is complicated. And for someone that, well, I thought I did understand it, but now I realise I just don't. But no, it's great. Thank you for that. It's brilliant.
That's all right.
Great. And Jess is just commenting to save her voice. She said there's a Facebook page called Lightbulb for journalist requests. So great. I'll have to go and follow that one. That's one I wasn't aware of. So thank you for that. So great. So Jess is also saying that she loved content clusters. And Rebecca is also saying thank you so much for all the information. Yeah, I think there's loads there. So now I've got, okay, one of the things I want you to talk about is search intent as well, because you've got to put yourself into your customer's shoes. And when someone is facing liquidation, like that is a high stakes situation.
Yeah.
So they are absolutely on the internet searching for answers. But what about businesses where maybe people aren't, kind of doing that quite so much? So like I work with a lot of service-based businesses. I have a service-based business. And I'm just curious as to what you're talking about, like how would that apply for, a business coach or for a branding consultant?
That is such a good question. And I can't believe I've missed out on touching on that in the presentation, because that is a really good point. So what was really important for us is to really look at the sales funnel and where people are in that journey. So at the top of the sales funnel, you've got people who may not know about your services at all. For some people, that might be, for insolvency experts in particular, it might be businesses who are going through financial trouble, but may kind of know about liquidation, but not 100% know about it. So for us, that was the reason why the company liquidation guide was sort of the longer piece of content. It's because people at that stage might only just be considering it, or for other businesses, they might only just be finding out about your services. So as an example, for us at TAO Digital, we can go anywhere from what is digital marketing through to something very, very technical, because people are at different stages of understanding. And that's where search intent comes in. So if someone was to Google what is company liquidation, the aim is for our company liquidation guide to be there to answer in depth in basically just plain English. Whereas when you are having someone who's talking about directors' involvement with liquidation, or owing different creditors money and things like that, they might be a little bit further into the process. So we can become more technical with that. And then if you've got someone who's Googling something like, company liquidators in Bolton, they're ready. They're
Yeah.
ready straight away to make that inquiry. And so search intent and understanding where they are they trying to find information, or are they trying to inquire, is the main thing. And that's really important to bear in mind.
So do you recommend that people do create content for the first ones who actually they're not ready to inquire yet as well?
100%.
Where do you start? Do you start with the people who are, I now want to buy, is just a question of who from?
Yeah.
Or do you start there and then maybe work backwards?
So for us, it was a little bit of a combination of both, because of course we want to target people who are ready to inquire now, and they're the sort of quick wins. But also longer term, you want to be thinking about when these people are ready to inquire, you want to be there in the back of their mind. And so for us, we kind of went at it from both ends of the sales funnel. So we targeted the very quick wins first, those who were ready to convert. Then we started on the longer piece of content, and for us, it would take a little bit longer for those to convert, so you won't see the results straight away. But just knowing that that information's out there, ready to be indexed, and people are looking for it, and kind of working that way. And that's the sort of strategy that we used for insolvency experts, and it's obviously worked for them. So it just depends on whether you want quick wins now, which is the sort of really targeted stuff, or you are happy to be there throughout that buyer journey.
I imagine for the quick wins now, those are probably the more competitive search terms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to rank for the people who are ready to buy now. They'll have all the links. They'll be doing all the PR around it. And so that's why you really have to sort of hone in on what is also easier for you at the minute, because as we were looking at, I mentioned earlier, the keyword difficulty, those keywords where people are ready to convert, so company liquidators in bulk learn, or say for example business strategists in my area, etc. Those are the keywords that are much harder to rank for. So you do have to be very strategic about what information you're putting on the page, how many links you have, your domain authority, all those different things sort of tie into it really.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something I am not an SEO expert, by the way, but in the past I have done various, courses and kind of learning on stuff, and I get so far into it and I kind of just go, it's just not me. But it's not my area of strength, right? I'm a people person, not an analytical person. But like a lot of the time when I would do kind of initial research, so much of what I found for business coaching was people who wanted to become a business coach, not people who were looking for a business coach. And I think you've got to look at what your industry is and understand that, I think probably a lot of things that would work, apart from the kind of business coaching X, where people are ready to buy. I think a lot of the other search terms, you've really got to look at the nuances of why is someone searching on this, what kind of results are coming up, what is it that people are actually looking for, to make that work, because obviously you don't want to be putting a load of effort into creating content, in my instance, for somebody who then just wants to become a competitor. It's like, no. I mean, there's work enough for all of us, that's fine. But actually what you want to be doing is attracting prospects.
So, and even for search intent, just Googling the phrases that you think people will search for around your services and seeing what kind of pages and guides are coming up. You would be very surprised at the amount of times that I've searched something and thought, I would not initially think that that's what they were looking for, when guides come up or YouTube videos or whatever. But then Google knows best. Google knows what people are clicking on and staying on. So
they're the data monster.
Yeah.
Google definitely is the data monster for sure. There was a comment I made because it was a discussion I had. It was something I was kind of talking about just in the last few days, actually, in terms of, so I have a podcast. And so, I'm kind of looking to up level my promotion of that podcast. And I'm going to be doing a lot more on YouTube kind of going forward in next year and, things like that. And so, but how people search on YouTube and how people search on Google is different. And there was that thing about the answers to questions, I think is really key as well, which is, like you've got two big engines in terms of search, Google and YouTube, but people tend to use them differently, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting you say that. For another one of our websites, which is called the Goldfish Tank, completely different ball game here. But we are starting to use YouTube and looking at what people are typing on YouTube and working with shorts, like YouTube Shorts, for example, to very quickly answer the questions that people are typing on YouTube. You're right, it is very different the way that people use them.
Yeah, fantastic. So let me just check any other questions. So anything else from you, Jess or Stephen?
No, it's just been an amazing amount of information and how it all works, because I just didn't know there was how you do it all. But now I've got a far better understanding of what goes into getting somebody, improving rankings. It's an exact science, isn't it? Really.
It is, and it changes all the time, which is why you've always got to be on your toes in this industry, because tomorrow there could be an algorithm update and PR suddenly doesn't matter anymore. You don't know these things.
Actually, I do have a question. So how often do things change? So obviously you were, so insolvency experts are paid higher than gov.uk. Now, how long does information, or what do you have to change in order to remain above gov.uk?
You really do have to sort of stay on the toes. So it's a case of, for us, like having a look at the competitors, we've got within Ahrefs, you can see keyword ranking movements and it gives you a daily update. And you might look at that and say, who's gone above us now? What have they done differently? Have they updated the page? Have they had more backlinks to the page? Have they had an update to the website? Just having a sneaky look. Or if you don't have that software, you can just Google that page and see if anybody is above you and have a look at what they might have done a little bit differently. It is changing literally every single day.
That's like a full-time job, isn't it? To have somebody on it all the time. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. That's why you have specialists to go to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So I do have one other question actually, just before we wrap up, Lydia, which is, how long? I know the answer might be a piece of string, but how long does it typically take for a business to start getting those inquiries and from this SEO work? Because I mean, what I've heard before is that it can take a good 6 to 12 months for SEO to really work for you. And I think particularly for a lot of smaller companies, it can be hard, I think, to invest in something. I mean, I think it's brilliant from the point of view of this is long-term stuff that is going to pay off over and over as long as it's kept on top of. But for a lot of businesses, if they've got to invest for 6 to 12 months before they really start seeing returns, is that still the case? Has that changed?
I'm going to use an SEO's favorite term, which is it depends. So it really depends. If you've got a website that is already very well established, you've got a lot of content on there, you've got a decent domain rating, you could see returns within 2 to 3 months if you're doing content. Whereas if you said like you're a smaller business, it can be harder to sort of see the return on investment long term, not see the return, but like sort of predict it, because it can be 6 to 12 months. And if you're investing a lot of money into this content, it's going to take you a year to see the results. Then it can be a bit like, is it going to happen? Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's why you often see more established companies investing in this. I think that makes sense to me. I think there's probably strategies that smaller companies can use initially, but then once you have those things up and running, I do think it's a great strategy for businesses to use, but I think they need to do it with the right mindset. They've got to play the long game with it.
100%.
And I think if they come into it with the attitude of, I'm in month 2, why haven't I got an increase in my inquiries? Then that's not the way to kind of play this game. You've got to, I want to say this carefully, but the way that they should say you shouldn't gamble the money you can't afford to lose. I think when it comes to SEO, you shouldn't invest money into it that you're able to kind of not see a return on in the short term, or possibly even the medium term, because it does depend on how competitive. You got to look at each individual case, don't you? Great. Well, look, Lydia, thank you so much. I think it's been very informative what you have shared here today. I can imagine people going back and replaying and looking at the slides and taking screenshots. Absolutely do that. And I think the final thing I would just say as well is, make sure you've got your business strategy down before you start using different tactics like this. And then within each tactic that you want to be using, make sure you're being strategic within the tactic as well.
That's why it was important for us to speak to them about
Yeah.
where they wanted the business to go, and for them it was company liquidation. That's the strategy. That's the area that they really wanted to focus on.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much, Lydia. Thank you, Stephen and Jess, as always, for being here. And wasn't it lucky? You didn't have to speak too much because Lydia was doing the presentation. It all worked out.
Great presentation,
wonderfully.
Lydia. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, everyone. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. And next week, I believe we're going to, now that Stephen is better, we will do what we were going to do last week, which is around the cold calling, isn't it, Stephen?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll be back same time next week, or actually a bit earlier than we were today. We'll be back same time next week as always. So bye for now.
Bye-bye.